While Alien 3 receives passionate debate, Alien Resurrection just tends to be dismissed, which is a shame because there's definitely plenty worth discussing. So join us for Alien Day as we explore the themes, characters and design of the franchise's weirder fourth entry. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
It is Alien Day when this goes out for everyone. Alien Day 2023, and it's become a yearly tradition on Alien Day to do a movie in the Alien franchise, and this is our fourth Alien Day on the show, so we're here today to talk about Alien Resurrection. Meaning we only have two left, actually, after this. So
yeah, because we already did the AVP movies.
Yeah, so, I mean, I beyond that point, because it's not like we're going to wait till Alien Day if they release a new Alien movie in the summer. We'll just do it when it comes out. Which also, if they end up releasing a new Alien movie before we get to like the sixth one, we'll just have to do the sixth one early, because we have to have them all done.
Just reset. We'll just do the first Alien again.
We'll just keep doing them over and over again. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. So yes,
it's been 6 years and we're going back.
So yes, obviously we've done Aliens 1 through 3 through different eras. I'm pretty sure Tara's lived in a different place on every Alien episode. And we're here to do the fourth one, directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet. Came out in
That might be exactly right.
I mean, I'm just guessing. It sounds plausible enough. But yeah, this came out in 1997, and obviously we'll start spoiler free as we always do, but there might be some spoilers for the previous movies. In fact, I'm about to say one for Alien 3. You've been warned. Ripley died at the end of Alien 3, so the title Alien Resurrection is very relevant to the fact that Sigourney Weaver is back in this movie. And notably, this is also written by Joss Whedon, which is kind of a weird like offshoot in his filmography. It's like he did this. But I can actually see some future Whedon projects kind of like bleeding into this a little bit. So we'll talk a bit about that. We'll talk about how the aliens are used in this, the setting, the characters, all the usual good stuff, and we'll work through the movie when we get into spoilers. So, yeah. The basic premise of this one is that some time has passed. It's never actually, I don't know if it's ever defined exactly how much time has passed, but some decades or whatever later, after Alien 3, we're on a military science ship which has been cloning Ripley from her DNA at the time of her death to try and get an alien. They want a xenomorph, and they succeed. You know, that's kind of how the movie starts, is that they've pulled this off. They've got like a new version of Ripley that's a clone, and they've got a xenomorph, an alien queen, which obviously leads to some aliens. And we have a ragtag crew that sort of come in for reasons we'll get into when we get into the plot. But of course the aliens break loose, and we end up with clone Ripley and this ragtag group of like pirates, effectively, running around this ship trying to survive and get to safety. So it's, you know, it's kind of like Alien and it's on a ship, but it's a little bit like Aliens and that there's multiple aliens. It's a bit more actiony. It's got a very unique look to it. It's very European because they've got a French director, and he kind of brings some of his visual style to the film. So we'll talk about all this stuff. But without further ado, I shall simply ask Tara the question to kick things off. Tara, how do you feel about Alien Resurrection?
I saw this one in theaters, actually. And I remember going to see it in theaters and thinking that was kind of fun. And I really like seeing Ellen Ripley versus Alien still. And I still like it. I never didn't like this movie. So yeah. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but like I've always kind of liked this film.
I don't know. Like, I feel like there's kind of like a weird mixed reception to it on the internet. Do you know what the funny thing is? I feel like people looked down on it for a long time, and then Prometheus and Covenant came out, and all of a sudden this looks like gold in comparison.
But I do think it is like a fun adventure film with characters that don't feel like repeats from other Alien films, and like it definitely has a different look, which is what we've been expecting. Like so far, all four of these have looked different and felt different.
That's the weird thing about this, is that all four of these original Alien movies, and I say that because for a long time it was the four. You know, there was a big gap between this and then Prometheus, right? The four Alien movies, like it's Ridley Scott, James Cameron, David Fincher, and then Jean-Pierre Jeunet. And Jean-Pierre Jeunet is easily the smallest name of those, but he still has stuff like Delicatessen.
He's done Amelie though.
Yeah.
Like that was a huge hit.
He's definitely a bit more art house as a director, but like it's all strong directors with visions. It's all directors who are like who can bring their own style and flair to the movie as Tara's slowly dying. But to give my background on the movie, so I'm a little younger than you, so it's interesting you saw this in theaters, right? Because I saw this when it first came to VHS, and basically I'd just seen the other three movies like right before. Like I rented Alien 1, 2, 3, watched them, and then got Resurrection from the store as soon as it came out for rental. So basically I was getting into movies like this at that time, but I wasn't quite old enough to actually go to the movies to see them because it would have been like at least a 15, and I was just like 8 or 9. So, you know. Yeah, so I remember, I mean, I liked it then, but I was a kid, I liked everything then, so that's irrelevant, really.
When did this come out? What year?
97.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I would have been 8, most likely, when I saw it.
Yeah, I was 12.
Yeah. So, yeah, I actually, like, my opinion in this movie, ever since my late teens, has basically been very consistent, in that I kind of like it. I like the group of characters for the most part. I like how the movie looks. I like the set pieces. However, I do think it falls off a cliff for the last like 20 minutes, and I hate the ending. So that obviously brings it down for me, but I like it. Like, there's a moment where Ripley falls through a floor, and that's where the movie goes to shit. But everything before that, I have a good time with. It's not obviously comparing to Alien or Aliens. Like, those are 10s. Those are masterpieces. This is never that. But it's a really solid, just like, oh, it's another Alien movie with some fun moments and, you know, likable enough roguish characters.
Yeah.
I'm kind of into it. And then it gets really weird and stupid at the end, and I don't like it. But
I don't know that I hate the ending. I mean, we'll go into it when we talk about the spoilers, but you know, there is like a new creature design and stuff, and I don't hate it. I don't hate the design, or it's effectively creepy.
yeah, we could talk about it, but for spoiler-free sake, I'll just say, the direction it went was a bit weird, and I think it's partly Sigourney Weaver's fault. I know Weaver.
Didn't she like say specifically she wanted something like this to happen?
Yeah, she was on record way before this movie even happened, and they probably talked her back into it because they said, "Hey, we'll let this happen at the end," and she's like, "Yeah." So yeah, that's how they wooed her back into the fold. In fact, I want to say it's been all since I've watched the making of stuff for this, but it's very good. Like, all four of these Alien movies have great documentaries on the Blu-rays and DVDs if you've got the full set of extras. And they're on the iTunes versions as well if you get those. But you know, it's got a 3-hour making of documentary that goes through all the different bits and pieces. And I think they were planning an Alien vs Predator movie, like maybe instead of this. And like Sigourney Weaver in the interviews. So when this documentary was made, it was made maybe like 2 years before AVP came out. And she says, "Oh, that was a horrible idea. So then we did Alien Resurrection instead." So it's just really funny that a couple of years after that, she said that the actual AVP movie came out, and you know,
and it wasn't good.
Like, well, I mean, let's go back to that list that I gave you a couple of minutes ago: Ridley Scott, James Cameron, David Fincher, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, Paul W.S. Anderson. There is.
Yeah.
Come on now. Come on.
Well, you know my complaint with that film.
Why don't the Predators have winter gear? Yes, I know.
Yeah, it's so stupid. Yeah. It's stupid.
Yeah. So, no, but I do think the movie looks good. I think it has a really grungy tone. It's got this sort of, there's a lot of yellow and green in the image, and that's very in line with the other movies that I've seen from Jean-Pierre Jeunet. City of Lost Children, Delicatessen, stuff like that. Look, it's this very kind of European, kind of art-y science fiction look that that it has, and you've got the grungy ships. Everything, you've got the lighting coming through the gratings in the floor. So it feels in line with the stuff that we've seen in some of the other Alien movies, but it does also feel its own. Like I can recognize Resurrection pretty easily between them.
Oh yeah, totally.
So that's really cool. I think I don't think it feels super Whedon-y for the most part, but I will say so the crew of like ragtag like pirates who come on board with some cargo. The ship's called the Betty, right? So the Betty crew, just to have a name for them collectively. Like you can see some Firefly. Like this is about what, 1987. So this is like 5 years before Firefly happened, and I think you can see like some of those ideas cooking like in the brain of the writer here, like.
Yeah, it still comes off very European, especially like our lead captain guy.
Oh shit!
Who's in Nope, which came out last year. But
yeah, when I saw Nope, I recognized him from this because I don't really know him from anything else.
I mean, the voice, right? That's the thing that is so distinct.
It's very distinct. But like Ron Perlman's character feels kind of like he's a little Jane. Like there's a little bit of a comparison to be made there. So I can definitely see where some of this comes, but obviously, Whedon typically, like when he directs his own writing, you sort of get his voice coming really through, and obviously this is filtered through someone else. This is Jean-Pierre Jeunet's take on his script. So
yeah, there's not a lot of comedy in this too, which is sort of Whedon's signature thing, right?
Yeah, there's little bits of it, of course, but not a great ton of it. It's mostly a pretty played straight action horror sci-fi movie for the most part. But yeah, it, like you said though, I think you made a great point where the characters don't feel like a repeat of the first movie. It's the truckers in space. It's just the people who haul cargo across the cosmos.
Blue collar,
right?
Yeah.
Second movie, colonial marines. Third movie, prisoners. Fourth movie, you've got space pirates,
smugglers or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a very different group of people in each movie, and I think that benefits all four of them considerably. So, I mean, arguably the group in AVP are a little different, but they're still kind of going for aliens, like in setup.
I don't really remember that movie.
Okay, fair enough. I do, unfortunately. But because they've got the military guys going in with the scientists, but it definitely feels like it's aiming more for aliens again, which is one of my complaints a lot with like modern sequels and stuff, is that it feels like they're too concerned with recreating the previous movies rather than doing something interesting with them. But not which is not to say that this movie does not break the mold, but it has a different enough setting and characters set that it's like, oh no, it still feels unique amongst the franchise up to this point.
I do think it's weird that there's like an underwater level in this movie in space. I thought that was kind of a forced thing that I don't know, made me laugh. Like, why is this happening? Like, I know the first movie, the ship had a lot of condensation. It was super drippy, but this one has like a Poseidon adventure 20-minute scene. I don't know about this. It feels strange in space.
It's the big set piece. I don't think it feels strange. I don't know if I agree with that. Because it's just, it says something about the cooling systems like leaking or whatever. There's a line, which obviously, they just wanted to have the big underwater set piece, but it doesn't feel that far-fetched to me.
It seems a bit strange that there would be so much water on this that it would flood like 3 decks.
I feel like a ship like this would be carrying a lot of water. They kind of need it for a lot of different things.
Okay, maybe, but it just feels like we want to have an underwater scene in this, but we're in space, so we'll write a line that says, "Oh, it's from the coolant," but like it's not enough for me.
I don't think this is that weird. Honestly, like, obviously, it's not meant to be out in the open like this. It's not meant to just be filling up places. So, like, it's not like they ever say there's a risk that it'll flood the entire ship. Like, it's basically already like reached whatever height it's going to reach, right?
Yeah, I guess. This same year's Titanic. Maybe they're trying to like. Maybe they know about Cameron's work.
I mean, I don't know. It's a Fox movie as well, so I don't know if that would. That feels a bit weird.
It does. I know.
I don't know. This
I
is
think
just one of your
came
weird
out,
complaints. I don't get this.
Maybe, I don't know. It stood out to me because I'm like, but they're in space. Like, why is there so much freaking water?
Jesus Christ! This is the Predator winter gear all over again. Why is there so much? Because they need water to drink and clean and wash, and the ship probably uses it for other things as well.
Yeah, yeah. Famously very hot in space. So.
Hey, it's a military ship. Maybe there's a swimming pool.
Maybe.
I don't think that's that weird to suggest.
A swimming pool in space. Seems silly.
Why is that a weird idea? This is a world that has ships that like they have hotels in space. You don't think they have swimming pools?
No.
What do you mean no? Of course they do. Why wouldn't they?
What if the gravity goes out or something? That'd be such a big mess.
What do you mean if the gravity goes like
everything runs off electricity? Like you'd want to have as little water as possible.
Tara, has anything in any alien movie ever shown that that's a possibility? Whatever the technology is in these alien movies, they've got the gravity problem sussed on their ships. Because there's never like a gravity turns off scene, there's never a zero G moment.
It just seems like a design flaw. I don't think it's unreasonable for me to giggle at the fact that they have an underwater scene in a spaceship movie.
Yeah, but it's not supposed to be like obviously out flooding like that. But you're saying that you just don't believe that there would be that much more. I'm saying they've got like a crew of like, 30, 40 people. They're out here in space for long stretches of time between supplies. I think it makes complete sense they'd have this much water.
I don't know. I think it's silly. But whatever. I think we can move on.
Anyway, back to the direction a little bit. I want to talk about some of the because there's some choices in this, like on top of just the visual look of the movie, like how it's shot with the like there's like moments where the camera will like snap, like sort of like track in or zoom into someone's face as they're screaming. There's some flashy little moments in direction, like compared to like some of the things you would have seen in the previous movies. Alien 3 by comparison was shot like a gritty drama, whereas this actually has a bit more energy. There's almost like and I don't mean this in a bad way, because sometimes I'll mean this in a bad way, but here there's almost like a little bit of a music video kind of like touch here or there. It
kind of comes off as cool, and maybe that's the maybe it's also because we have a really cool Ripley in this. She is like a legit action superhero in this one.
Yeah. I mean, that was probably part of the appeal for Sigourney Weaver to even come back, is that she's not. I mean, the real Ripley's dead. This is not the real Ripley. This is a clone of Ripley. And she gets to be a bit more, wisecracky, like ass kickery. She's not.
She has a completely different attitude.
Yeah, she's not vulnerable. She doesn't get scared like real Ripley did. Understandably so. This Ripley is like very nonchalant and like unhuman at points. And that's part of the interesting, sort of viewing of this is like seeing how she plays that. Which we should probably stick to the cast as well, actually. So we have Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, obviously. We have Winona Ryder as Call, her name is. I will say this, the names in this are weird, which might be a very Whedon thing, actually, because he likes weird names. But it's hard to catch a lot of them in this.
It's 200 years in the future from the last film, too.
Oh, did they say that?
Maybe names have changed.
Wait, they said that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they said 200 years in the future.
Why didn't you say that earlier when I said I didn't know how far in the future it was?
I must have checked out. Maybe I was coughing.
I'm so glad you listened to what I'm saying, Tara.
I try. I was probably dying.
Someone check the tape. If Tara was not dying in that moment, I'm very upset.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 200 years. Some scientist brought it up or something.
Yeah, you're probably right. I just didn't catch it on this viewing. But yeah. Call's her name anyway. So, yeah. I mean, she's fine. I have no real opinion on Winona Ryder as an actor, to be honest. She's just kind of... Obviously, she was famous for Beetlejuice and stuff like that.
Yeah, she's fine.
Yeah. She kind of is there. She has the main kind of, like, pairing with Ripley, and that she's sort of really against her at first, but there's a bit of an arc, and she kind of befriends her as the movie goes on. There's a little bit of that going on. The actual interesting details about her character are kind of like spoilers, so we'll save them for that. But I mean, she's fine. Dominique Pinon, who's like a Jeunet regular. He's in a lot of his other movies. He's the guy in the wheelchair in this. His character's name is Vries. That's Vriess. Vries.
Breeze.
So like it's the only way I know how to say it.
I like his character. He brings a lot of like fun to it. Because obviously he's bound to a chair, so like he has limitations, but he also has advantages because of the chair. I mean he's got a good face too, so he's fun to watch.
He's got a very expressive face. He's also got a very like not quirky. Quirky's not the right word, but he's like the way he reacts to things and like yells and like he's very animated and he's very different. Like I think he is French. He's got an accent and he's in obviously all these other French movies that Jeunet did, but he definitely comes across like a performer who's not a Hollywood performer, and I think that adds a bit of personality to the character in the movie.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Ron Perlman, of course, very well known. This is probably the movie I first saw him in when I was a kid.
Yeah, I was trying to think like if I had really seen him in things. Well, Beauty and the Beast. I watched the Beauty and the Beast show.
Okay, I never saw that. Yeah, he's good in this. He's obviously like he's the one who has the biggest career, other than Sigourney Weaver, obviously. But he's the biggest career of all the other cast members, and I think you can see why. He's got the charisma, he's got the presence.
He's got a good face.
He's got a good face. Yeah. So he's pretty great in this. And then you got Christy, played by Gary Durden, who is again one of the more notable characters that stands out. He's kind of the straight man in a lot of ways of the group. Everyone else has kind of got a quirk to them. He's obviously good with like mechanical stuff because he's got the gun holster things that pop out and whatnot. But then you've got the captain of the Betty, played by Michael Wincott, that we mentioned, with the very unique voice. You've got the second in command, who seems to be his girlfriend or wife. She's just kind of there. Like I have nothing to say about her.
Yeah.
She exists. She's a person.
We get to see her butt at one point.
That is true.
And her feet.
Also true. You see her feet. Foot fetish. Your time is now. We have the military guy played by Dan Hedaya, who you might know from Cheers of all things.
Yes.
So I definitely saw this long before I watched Cheers, but it is kind of that weird thing going back and watching this when
He's
I know.
always going to be Carla's ex-husband.
Yeah, that's just who he is. And what's so funny is that he's got a uniform on in this, and obviously he's got some authority. But part of me still feels like he's being skeevy, like he's and he kind of is.
Yeah.
But there's like a. Yeah.
You can't trust him.
Also, the man has a very respectable body of hair because he wakes up at one point and he's shirtless, and you see like all the shoulder hair, and I'm like, I mean, I'm probably just as hairy, but your hair's much darker than mine, so it's really looking like a coat of fur. It's just really quite something. He's a hairy man.
Yeah.
He's good though. He is good. There's a bit of weird dialogue early on between him and Wincott's character, where they're talking about Winona Ryder, and for some reason they just sort of like they're not talking about women at all, and they just start talking about how much they want to screw her. It's really weird.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about.
There's a couple of weird moments early on in this movie that I kind of accept because I'm just used to them always being there, but that's one of them where I'm like, oh yeah, this is weird that they just start talking about her like that.
He's got one of he definitely has the scene that I remember the most from the film. The scene that like made me go ugh and like stuck with me after I'd watched it in the theaters the most.
Yeah, I just always remember him sucking on the orange because when he's talking to Wincott, he's sitting just like sucking on this slice of an orange the whole time.
Looks like a lemon.
Yeah, or was it a lemon? Yeah, it's from his drink. He had it on his drink, so he's just kind of sucking on it. We have Dr. Wren, played by J.E. Freeman. He's kind of like the Paul Reiser of this movie, but he's more of a scientist than a businessman.
Yeah.
So you got him. You also have Brad Dourif as another scientist. So obviously Chucky, nice to see him,
Immediately don't trust him.
of course. And then the last notable person would be Raymond Cruz as sort of basically he's basically just one of the military, but he ends up being kind of prominent because he sticks around with the crew. Most people will know him now from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. He plays a recurring character on those two shows. If I remember watching this like 4 or 5 years ago, seeing him and going, "Holy shit, that's like," because I never knew him from anything else, so it was like a rediscovery seeing him in this and be like, "Holy shit."
That's funny.
So, yeah. So a relatively interesting cast, I would say.
Yeah. And there was a face that we recognized watching another movie where it's a character that shows up like halfway through this.
Oh, is this Purvis?
He's got like the really gaunt face and the glasses.
Yeah. Purvis, yeah. Leland
Yeah.
Orser. What's he from?
I don't remember offhand, but I remember we were like, "What's this guy from?" Like, he looks familiar, and we looked it up, and it was Alien Resurrection, and we immediately were like, "Oh, it's that guy."
I'll just have a quick look at his IMDb page. He's in 7, and he's in Taken, apparently. But obviously, this would be a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, we probably would have seen him in a sci-fi thing.
Yeah. Oh, the dude's got a lot of credits, to be fair. He's been on a lot of TV episodes, so fair play to him. Oh, actually, it could have been a Trek episode. I don't think it's a Trek episode. I had a quick look.
You and I don't. I mean, we only watched New Trek together, so.
Well, that's what I was meaning, though. I was checking the new Trek, sort of years. Because he's still working. He's still doing stuff.
Yeah. No, I want to say it was another Ace episode.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I don't know.
He is in a Voyager, though.
Oh, excellent.
So
is Brad Dourif.
He is Techie Medical Assistant #1 in Independence Day.
I don't know that that's what we recognized.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Oh, he was in a Deep Space Nine episode as well.
Ooh. Probably an alien.
Yeah. He was in an episode of Cheers. Holy shit, it's like a whole shared universe. Everything's coming together. Okay, I didn't see anything else. So,
okay.
I guess we'll go with that. And maybe if there was something I've missed, then, people can tell us in the comments. But, cool. Yeah, so, yeah. Yeah, I kind of left him out. Not because I thought even mentioning him was a spoiler, but just because I didn't know how to describe him without spoiling him. Because, like, he's got one thing that's important about him.
He shows up, like, halfway through. But he makes a mark, for sure.
Yeah. So, no, like, it's an interesting cast of characters that I mostly enjoy. There is a couple that are basically just there to be killed, and hopefully I didn't make it too obvious which ones those are as I was reading those out. But, like, I think there's a lot of practical sets. There, on the visual effects side of things, this is actually the first movie with CG aliens in it. Well, kind of. 3 did kind of have something like that, but I will say for the most part, though, even though you can tell when they're CG, for them, I think for the most part they knew that it wasn't too passable, so like they only used it in very quick shots where they wanted to use the legs like moving and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't like the look of the legs moving because they look like velociraptors to me when they move. It's like they took the model from Jurassic Park and they said, well, we can use this but put a xenomorph over it or something. And I don't know, they move like bird-like, they didn't seem like the xenomorphs that I remember.
Except when they're swimming, of course.
Right.
But no, they don't overdo it though. Like all the close-ups of the heads are still practical effects. Like they're still doing most of it practically. It's only the scenes that they wanted to do something that they'd never done before in an Alien movie. They wanted to show this wide shot of the alien climbing a ladder, for example. It's like, oh, like this is where you use the CG, and they look very shiny when they're CG, but
they do.
It definitely could be worse. Like 1997 CG, I could have expected worse than this.
That's true, and it was technically worse than the film before, where they used maybe too much CG.
Well, I don't think it was CG in the third. I think it was like stop motion they used in the third movie.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think it was CG.
I remember it looked really, really bad.
Oh no, I agree with that.
I thought it was just early CG, and it just really was not ready for the movie. Was not. They didn't have Stan Winston or whoever was doing Who did the effects for?
For 3?
No, for Jurassic Park for computer. Was it just ILM?
ILM, yeah. Well, Stan Winston, I think, worked in Jurassic Park as well. He did obviously he did the practical side.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah. But I think the effects are, but because everything else looks great. I think like the practical aliens look good and slimy.
The set looks great.
The sets look good. Yeah, the ships look fantastic. There's a lot of miniature work still. There's a whole section in the big making of documentary about the miniatures that's longer. It's actually longer than the digital effects segment, which is saying something because obviously these days that would not happen.
Right.
The digital effects segment would be like 5 hours long, and then everything else would be crammed into an hour.
Sad though, because that's everything that we love.
I know.
We love model work. It always looks good.
It does. It looks great, and it does look pretty great in this movie. Still, they're still using a lot of the true and try techniques with a little bit of modern stuff, but mostly try and try. Do you know what's actually interesting about just how the movie looks? Not in like a style sense, but just in like the image quality sense. Is that see when they released the quadrilogy DVD when it first had these big documentaries and I had that box set that came out in 2003, and at the time this one looked the best of the 4 because it was the newest. Because it was from 1997. And what's funny is that when they remastered stuff for Blu-ray and they did the 4K scans and all the rest of it, is that all of a sudden this one looked the worst. And the reason for that is because the other 3 got like these remasters because they were older. So Alien and Aliens especially, it looked phenomenal. Like the modern prints you can get of them, if you buy any of the modern versions of them, they look stunning. And this movie looks very soft by comparison. Just because they thought, we don't need to do any work to that. But it actually looks the worst of them now from an image quality perspective.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I'll be very curious though, because Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection have not switched to 4K yet. So I'll be curious to see what it looks like when the eventual 4K upgrade happens. But not really bad, but it just like compared to like Alien and Aliens that look just stunning now. If you go and watch them, so it's interesting. Yeah. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we get into the spoilers?
I think this movie has like a lot of memorable scenes in it. So I know people don't like this one very much, but like there's some really great deaths in this movie.
There's a couple like really good ones. Yeah, there's one towards the end that I really like.
Yeah, there's a lot of like really clever use of like of just like being industrious on how to kill something if you're a xenomorph or if you're like a human trying to kill something. Like I don't know, like there's a lot of cleverness to the setups.
Yeah,
that kind of stick with me after the film.
As much as you wanted to debate it a little bit, like obviously everyone remembers the water section because it's a very standout set piece. It's a big deal. And I remember the making of stuff having a big section on like, we had this big set that was a tank and they're filling it with water and all the things they have to go through to film a sequence like that. But I always remember like the lab scene. I won't say what happens in it yet, but there's like a lab scene with like the failed clone attempts.
Yeah.
I always remember that from this movie.
It's very disturbing.
I always remember the basketball scene.
Yeah, that one could be cringe, but I don't know. I don't mind it. I think it's kind of like a fun thing to have in the film.
I like it. There is one moment on it though that is kind of weird now that I'm watching it with adult eyes, where I'm like, we'll talk about it because we're about to get into spoilers. So. Anyway, yeah. So full spoilers for Alien Resurrection. You have been warned, and we'll get going. Yeah, the opening segments of the movie are basically Ripley's been operated on. They've cloned her. They take out the alien queen, and they're like, hey, she's still alive. And part of that's because through this cloning process, like she's not just purely human. We find out quite quickly that she's got acid for blood, like the aliens, right? Maybe not as strong, but it is there. So it's like she's a little bit alien. She's a little bit xenomorph.
She's got there's been some crossover in the DNA.
Yeah. And that's the thing, when we see the failed attempts later, it's like, oh shit, they went through a lot of monstrosities to get to this stage.
Yes. Well, you see her like she right away she gets a tattoo on her arm, and it is technically an 8, so she's probably the 8th one. But you don't know that it's an 8 right away, because it's just 2 blocks on top of each other.
Actually,
it could be an 8, could be something else.
Later on, the lab she goes in that's got all the failed experiments is room 7. So I got the impression from that she's like from the 8th batch rather than the 8th. Like there's been more than 8. Like there's been several of each number.
Oh, maybe.
Which is really dark and sinister. But
I mean, that whole scene is very dark.
yeah. So we see her kind of like training to learn things again. Brad Dourif seems more sympathetic of the 2 scientists that are kind of like are featured, because Ren's like the kind of the skeevy guy who is like, it's all about the...
Yeah, he seems to have more respect for her and the xenomorph and like the actual project and science and stuff behind it.
Yeah, not enough that you like see him as a good guy necessarily, but certainly not as villainous as Ren.
He's definitely just focused.
Yeah.
Focused on the work.
Yeah. So we see Ripley act out and whatever, and she's like, learning what a fork is, amongst other things. But as we're seeing this, we see that they've got an alien queen. General Perez is taking the scientists and talking to them, and there's an alien queen just in this chamber, and it's like, we need the cargo, and that kind of leads us into the other characters, because the cargo is coming on the Betty. So we meet that crew on their ship, and it very quickly establishes a few notable things. Like, this is the thing, we're in spoilers now, so I can just say this. The captain and his missus, like, they are the first 2 to die out of all the main characters. So they're the least important. So it very quickly transitions to like, no, let's introduce Ron Perlman. Let's introduce Reese. That's right, Reese.
Reese, wheelchair.
Yeah, we can't Larry David it. We can't just call him wheelchair. Okay, that's not fair. And
but that's the thing that makes him unique.
And obviously call Winona Ryder's character, right? And it's like introducing them. It sets up that Winona Ryder kind of looks out for Reese a little bit, and Ron Perlman's kind of mad at them for looking out for each other, because he basically is bullying Reese by like dropping a knife into his leg because he won't feel it.
Yeah.
Which still kind of disrespectful, even if you can't feel the pain. You've just stabbed the man.
And like you said, kind of a Jane move.
It is kind of a Jane move. He makes me think of Jane a little bit, and I wouldn't say Call, but if I was going to compare it to anyone, maybe like, because she's in the engine room, she's a little Kaylee, maybe not in personality, but just in terms of like her position on the ship. I don't know.
I mean, if you wanted to play that game, I guess she's the most like that, but like, I don't think they're anything really like.
No, I think Ron Perlman's character is the only one that feels like I can kind of correlate directly, but I would say the overall vibe of what this because they're a team of smugglers, like that is the crew in Firefly. So the overall vibe of them does kind of feel like that. But sure enough, their cargo is people, right? They've got people in cryosleep that they've acquired or stolen from somewhere.
Yeah, I was wondering why these people were selected. The memory I had was that they were all like bad people, like prisoners or like murderers or something anyway, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's something I've just made up.
Well, it didn't. From Purvis later on, because he's one of them, and we actually get to meet him, it sounds like he just thought he was going on a trip somewhere, and he woke up here, and he's been used in this horrible experiment. So this feels like it's just straight up, these people were kidnapped when they were asleep.
Oh, okay. So our heroes are all terrible.
Yes, they're all terrible. Well, to be fair, like, they don't know what they're going to be used for. Admittedly, it's still bad. They're still kidnapping people.
They kidnapped.
Yeah. But, like, they're used for the face huggers. They basically just put all these people in rooms with face huggers.
It's a good scene, yeah.
Yeah.
Where like they're all like asleep and like their heads are in some sort of harness, so that they're right over an egg, a xenomorph egg, and you see it like all the different chambers. And I think he's the only one who wakes up. and start screaming. Or maybe it was another guy. And not him at all.
Yeah. But there's a scene where Ripley's having lunch with Ryder, and Ren comes in, and he starts talking about how, like, the creatures are magnificent, because Ripley's not supposed to know about the creatures. In fact, General Perez freaks out at one point because he's like, why does it have memories? You shouldn't have memories. And he keeps saying it, he keeps referring to her as an experiment, as property, as I think at one point he calls her meat byproduct. Lovely. Charming.
Yeah.
Charming. But
well, they needed the alien queen, not Ripley.
Yeah, she's just a happenstance.
She's around now because they feel bad about killing her, and they're curious, I guess.
Yeah. So he's sitting there. He's like, "Yeah, we're going to tame them. We're going to tame the aliens." And Ripley's like, "Ha ha ha! You're not going to tame them. We're going to play fetch. No, they're going to kill you, and that's what's going to happen. And I'm going to enjoy it." And this guy is like super creepy. He's like, he's eating her food really weird and looking at her all skeevy. Like, there's nothing in the movie that says he's a pervert, but I just get that vibe,
Yeah.
Like, he never does anything perverted. He's just got that look in his eye.
Yeah, totally.
Like he wants to have sex with one of the aliens or something,
Well, yeah, he's looking down on her, right? Like, it's there's no respect there.
No. So, yeah, Ripley runs into some of the Betty crew, and Ron Perlman decides that he wants to try and hit it off with her. He wants to flirt.
Yeah, while she's playing basketball.
So he tries to seduce her while she's playing basketball, and
He can't resist the tall ones.
She emasculates him by not letting him get the ball, by tossing it behind his head, spinning it on her finger, holding it up high. And poor Ron Perlman gets really upset and frustrated to the point where Ripley ends up punching him. And this is the part that stuck out to me watching it this time, is that Christie is a character, the other member of the crew. He mostly seems pretty reasonable, but his reaction to Ripley punching Ron Perlman, who was acting like a bit of a dick, is to
to murder her, really. Yeah.
He picks up a set of weights and hits her in the face with them, and I'm like, the only reason why she's...
Yeah, that was a really extreme reaction, I thought, too. Like, they have no reason to believe she's, like, a superhuman. Like, that would have just broke her face and killed her with blunt force trauma. Like, that's...
I mean, maybe if it was a lighter hit, maybe just a concussion, but and broken nose. But yeah, she basically just gets a little bit of a nosebleed from it because she's, superhuman.
Yeah,
effectively. This is the moment that teaches us that our blood is kind of acidic, because like she tosses some on the floor and we see it bubbling and
Ooh.
It's like, oh, what's going on here? The other notable thing about this scene though, is that Call, when she realizes this is Ripley, has this look in her face like, oh shit, she knows who that is, and she's freaking out.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I didn't remember the twist for her, so, like, I was very curious about how she would know after 200 years. But I guess maybe Ripley would be famous.
Yeah, I mean, especially since, like, Call seems to be... Well, at first we just think she's like a freedom fighter who's trying to stop the evil military corporation from, bringing these aliens into the world. Obviously, it's expanded upon later that she is that, but she's also an android. She's as they describe it, she's a second gen, which means she's an android that was created by an android. So she has more of a personality than like the previous ones we've seen, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting that the robots have decided to procreate themselves by creating new robots, and maybe have some advancements that humans aren't aware of.
I don't think there's a lot of like thought into like this thematic point that I'm going to touch on here, but just like I think in terms of fitting into the Alien series, there's an interesting idea here that the androids have procreated, and like ever since the first movie, the big thing with the aliens has been their like very unique way of like continuing their life cycle, right? It's been this hostile takeover, and I think it's interesting that the first movie had this android that went rogue, but then the second movie said no, they can be good, Bishop's good and he's loyal, and that's continued a little bit into the third. I think it's interesting that androids have found a way to peacefully procreate that doesn't harm anyone, right? Obviously, it's
Maybe that means they have rights now, or?
Well, no, it sounds like the humans shut them down. That's what they say in the scene. He talks about how the humans like recalled them because there were too, I don't know what the exact line of dialogue
Unreliable?
was. Well, not
dangerous.
Too sentient. Basically, that's not the word they used, but it was something like that. They had too many thoughts of their own, I guess. Which I mean, I guess you could just describe that as dangerous, but I was trying to be more specific.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite interesting thematically to go alongside as like a sort of parallel to the aliens and how they've got a hostile like procreation thing.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to go forward for this film, for a sequel that takes place 200 years, because it kind of makes you wonder what happened in those 200 years then, without like going into it.
Yeah, and it doesn't go into it at all, really. That's like the most we get is that.
But yeah, it makes it like for a fan, it makes you go, oh, it adds a neat layer to this that you can really explore if you wanted to in later films or in like spin-off books or whatever.
Yeah, the other like just thing to tack onto this thought is as well as the idea that, you know, at first Call does not like Ripley and basically thinks she's a freak and says, no, we can't trust her. She gave birth to the alien queen. We can't do this. And then, but over the course of the movie, Ripley sticks up for Call. Ripley defends her to Ron Perlman at one point. She saves her from an alien. She throughout the film, even I think Call like hands her the weapon to like take out the clones in the failed clone room, right?
Yeah.
There's these little moments of like bonding between them throughout, and Ripley kind of sticks up for her. I think it's interesting as well if you look at Ripley's past. She was attacked by the android in the first movie. The second movie, she was distrusting of Bishop, but ultimately learned, no, he is good. And I think it's interesting that here in this fourth movie, when everyone else is ready to kind of write her off as some sex bot and like sort of disregard her, like Ripley treats her like a real person. And part of that may be that she also feels like she's not like a normal person either because she's been a clone of something. But
you know what I thought of? I thought, well, maybe she's kind of like the closest thing to like the Newt or like her daughter that maybe Ripley has a vague memory of, since she seems to have some memories from being Ellen Ripley before. So like it could be like, here's this girl, she's very small, she's very young, and like she's surrounded by all these really dangerous people. Maybe there is just an instinct to want to bond with her, want to protect her or something.
Which interestingly you brought up because the
movie,
she
could be about the age of her daughter, right, in comparison to Sigourney Weaver's age.
Like
she would be like 20 years older than her, right? So
sure, yeah. No, I was going to say though, you brought Newt up there. Is the movie opens with Ripley narrating and quoting Newt from the Aliens? She opens with the, you know, my mummy always said there was no such thing as monsters, but there are. You know, the movie opens with that line. Which I forget about. I always forget about that because it is, you know, it's not like she narrates the rest of the movie. That doesn't come up again. It's just very much like there. That idea is like presented right at the start, and then to set the tone. Which, yeah, I think. And just one more thing, this android thing, because I'm thinking about this is
sure.
Going back to Ash in the first movie, like we talked about how his attack was very phallic. You know, remember he was trying to shove the magazine, but he rolled it up and tried to shove it in her mouth, and it was almost like this urge to like do something sexual for something that isn't supposed to be sexual, for this being who's created asexually, effectively.
Yeah.
Just to tie that into the idea that the androids have procreated. Obviously, in their case, it's not a sexual thing; it's just a building a new android. But you know, it's an android of their design.
Maybe there was some deep desire to procreate, and that's why he went after her with a phallic imagery.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying thematically it ties it. I'm not saying necessarily that specifically, but yeah, like sort of along that kind of thought, like that's kind of the unhealthy, like he doesn't understand what he's desiring, and he's acting out in this way because he doesn't feel satisfied with life, and then it evolves, and but then we find out 200 years later, no, the androids have found a way to procreate by creating new androids, by having children effectively, and you know, advancing, and those androids are smarter and more self-aware than they are. They're, you know, the next step, And the fact that the android in this is like a freedom fighter terrorist who's trying to take down the military for, making these aliens that are dangerous to.
It's like the hippie version of her, yeah. So.
That's interesting. There's a lot of like layers to just think about, and I'm not sure how much of this is like
intentional.
Yeah, intentional or baked in there. Maybe, Whedon is a pretty good writer, so maybe this is kind of in there just in the base script. The movie doesn't go into it too much, but because all this history exists, it's easy to sort of stop and think about it and start, comparing it to the previous movies. What is it saying? How have things changed? How does that compare to the aliens and the themes that we've been playing with throughout? And I think the androids in these movies have always kind of been this counterpoint to the alien, where the alien's this perfect biological creature. They always say that, right? The ones who are excited by it, the scientist and
perfect,
beautiful, perfect entity. Whereas the android's a created life form. It is completely and utterly man-made. It is this the polar opposite of the xenomorph. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
And maybe it's even a bit of foreshadowing that the alien themselves in this movie is going to evolve as well. There's going to be a new evolution. So.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Anyway, so everything kicks off though because the aliens, much like Jurassic Park, I suppose, they're testing the defenses, and they learn quite quickly that Brad Dourif's got like a button that releases like I don't know if it's liquid nitrogen. That's maybe too strong, but it's something like that freezes them, and they learn quite quickly that button does that. But the aliens are smart, and there's like a bunch of them in the one cell, so they basically just kill one of them. Like they pick a sacrificial lamb, as it were, kill them, and then that alien's acid like just melts a hole in the floor, and like oh shit, all of a sudden all the aliens are loose.
Way to go.
You damn idiots. You never thought that they'd think of this. I mean,
it's a surprising scene too. Like it's well done that one of them would just be like, all right, you're the weakest one.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, the alien that got attacked didn't volunteer. He seemed very distressed.
Oh yeah. He's like, well, I know where you're going. We can talk this out.
Why me? Oh dear. So we have the aliens on the loose, and at this point, like Winona Ryder was talking to Ripley when she broke into her cell, and they got caught. But obviously, everything starts kicking off. So we very, very quickly we're in survival mode. How do we get off the ship? We have to get to the Betty, but a bunch of the ship's locked down. We have to go through some dangerous areas. Typical stuff, right? It's like, do we trust Ripley? She ends up saving their ass after the captain gets killed because she like shoots the alien through the hole in the floor.
She has a one-liner. I don't remember what it was, but it was the one time where I went, no. Nah. It's not working.
Nah. I did enjoy her ripping out the alien tongue though and offering it to Winona Ryder. I do have fun with that.
She's badass.
Yeah. I thought they don't do a lot with Reese's his lack of feeling in his legs, but I did think it was interesting because they set it up that then when some acid spills onto his leg, he doesn't, like, he just looks down at it like, what's that?
He probably smells it, right? And then
he smells it. Yeah, he smells some burning or whatever. But and then he touches it and he's like, ah, shit! Do not touch.
No, I thought that was a good use of his paralysis, and then obviously the chair also has like hidden weaponry in it, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, which I thought the guy who was checking them when they were coming on board the ship did a really bad job because, like...
Agreed.
I know that some of these parts are quite small and they're hidden, but the barrel of this like shotgun that he's got is just on the back. It's like just right there. That is clearly a shotgun barrel, you fools.
Yeah.
So from here, they're looking for their direction out. Like, they've got Raymond Crusoe's character, like, sort of telling them directions of where they can go to get to the docking bay, and they're trying to make their way there. And they come across, we've mentioned this a few times already, but they come across some of the labs, and it's this, experiment room where they were trying to clone Ripley, and there's just, like, test tubes with these monstrosities of, like, half-human alien hybrids. There's one that looks like Nemesis his head from Resident Evil 3. That's the best I can compare it
they
to.
all look like they're in a lot of pain.
Yeah, and then eventually we get to one that's not like fully formed, but it's got, it's Ripley's head on like a body that looks deformed, and she's just like pleading for death. She's just like, please kill me. That's all she's saying.
Me.
And and then this is the thing, the Ripley we've been following in this movie has been very stoic, very badass, wisecracking, isn't letting her emotions out. But here, like, the real Ripley comes out, the real kind of like emotion side where she's like, no, I have to do something about this. And it's hard not to use, and specifically it's a flamethrower. Not that she chooses the weapon, she's handed the weapon by call, but you can't help but think of End of Aliens. She uses a flamethrower on all the eggs, right? And for the alien queen, it's hard not to compare these two moments.
She just wants to destroy everything.
Yeah, but unlike that time, it wasn't the queen that did this to her. This was humans that did this. This is their monstrosity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there's some interesting thematic things to compare when you sort of dig into some of these like sequences that are in this movie. And it ends up obviously with Ron Perlman being like, "That's a waste of ammo."
It must be a chick thing. I don't know.
I don't know if setting an entire room on fire is a chick thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't strike me as particularly feminine activity, but whatever. He's not I don't know. He's not as forward thinking as a feminist. Actually, that makes me think. Actually, see back earlier on when the captain played by Wincott was talking to Perez, right, and he's getting his money. Perez, like, he slides over this big stack of cash, and he's like, you know how hard that was to come by these days? Like, no one uses cash anymore unless you're keeping something off the books. Well, that obviously makes a lot of sense, and it's very believable. I actually felt that it like, dated this future more, because I feel like we're already at that point, and it feels weird that we'd still be at that point.
Use crypto?
Yeah. It felt like they were predicting things correctly, but like what they were predicting is more like now rather than in 400, 500 years at this point, wherever we're at.
Right.
It's just kind of funny to me. So it just stuck out to me as being almost like, nah, you've
you're right. Yeah, I had a little bit of a chuckle too.
Yeah,
like,
you've lowballed
nobody
this.
would use cash in like 400 years or whatever.
Oh dear, but yeah. Is there any big set pieces? Yeah, they must find the dude. They must find Purvis soon at this point.
I'm trying to think of when they do.
Because that's definitely before all the water stuff, right? So.
Does he swim with them?
I think he does. Yeah, he's on the ladder, crying and like whatnot.
I don't know. I don't remember. I remember his entry, but I don't remember the point of it. The point of entry.
No, I think it's before. It must be around here. It's before the water section. Yeah. Obviously, some of these like set pieces, like you could sort of rearrange them in your head, and it wouldn't affect things too much. But yeah, they find him, and he's got an alien inside him, and very quickly, like Ripley can sort of smell it on him. She's like, he's packing. He's packing xenomorph.
He says, I can smell it. He's got one inside him, and he has no idea what's happened to him or like where he is or anything. And they're like having a casual conversation about like what this means and what they should do. And it's great because the camera just focuses on him the whole time, and he's like very quickly just going and saying like, no one is talking to me. Like, what is it inside of me?
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. And their ultimate choice is basically, we'll take him with us and we'll just put him on ice right away, and then someone can cut it out of him while he's like asleep when we get back to wherever. And it's like, based on the first movie, I'm not so sure if anyone can. That said, though, it's been like 250 years since that first movie at this point.
They extracted the queen out of Ripley.
Yeah, but Ripley's like special now. She's like got alien.
They did mention that she healed really fast.
Because in the first movie, they specifically say that there's no way of removing. Now, although that said, that was the face hugger. They didn't know that he had a chest burster in him in the first movie, so they never tried. So maybe you can remove it if the person's frozen asleep. Maybe you can take it out. Maybe. Let's hope.
I mean, it kind of happens in another film later on.
Yeah, but this guy's not going to make it that far though.
No.
In fact, he's going to.
But I really appreciate his death.
Yeah, he's going to quite gloriously use his chest burster to his full advantage.
Yes.
So, yeah, we have the big water set piece. You know, they have to like ditch the wheelchair. So, what's his name? Christie just has Vries on his back like a backpack. He's just facing the other way, which actually makes for some fun set piece moments because he wants.
It also is kind of an advantage to have eyes on the back of your head.
Yeah, but
that can shoot.
Obviously, when they're swimming, he like sees the alien coming, so there's like a warning system there, which is fun. But then when they're on the ladder on the other side and they're like whatever, like there's a lot of fun stuff where like he's dangling on his back so he can see stuff, and then they sort of switch around. So then it's Vries who's like hanging on for dear life as Christie's just kind of becoming dead weight because he's been injured, so he's just kind of dangling there. And it's like it's a fun set that they use it. Like it's not just done for the sake of doing it. It's done to have some moments out of it, which is fun.
Agreed. Yeah.
The water scene's alright. It's the captain's missus who gets grabbed underwater and dies first.
No, not Foot Lady.
Not Foot Lady. Ron Perlman's got a big moment here where he like sort of goes upside down with his guns and starts shooting at the aliens that are climbing up the ladder.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's
He's not a
definitely
very good shot though.
No, he's not. In fact, he almost hits Christie a couple times. I was like, damn, you maybe don't hit the other humans. Maybe.
I mean, in his defense, it is a strange angle to shoot from.
It's a big heroic moment for him. It definitely feels like more of a like Hollywood action moment. That even like because Aliens obviously is a lot of action, but I wouldn't say any of it feels like this type of moment. This feels more like, oh no, someone's going to be a hero and do something grandiose to try and save the day. It fails for the most part. I mean, he does shoot it. He does eventually hit it, but like, you know, it's not just this big happy ending now. All of a sudden, like Christie still has to like sort of unstrap himself and fall into the water because he realizes he's a goner anyway. So they're all pleading, "No, don't do it," and he goes in.
Yeah. Noble sacrifice.
I do love though that they get through this water. They're swimming from the aliens. One does get killed quickly with a grenade launcher, but when they get to the other side, not only
while underwater too, which is kind of a cool shot.
Yeah. I do appreciate that it's like, yeah, if you hit one with a grenade, it will kill them. They're not indestructible. But when they get to the other side, though, not only do they have to cut through like a layer of like alien film that's on top of the water, when they pop their heads out, oh shit, it's nothing but eggs.
Yeah, that's a fun added obstacle.
Yeah. Which Christie actually, they set this up earlier that he's good at ricocheting shots because he shoots a guy in the head by shooting the ceiling. He does that here with a grenade, where he sort of shoots the grenade up and it hits off the ceiling and lands in an egg, and then like all the eggs start blowing up. It's a fun set. This is the thing. Like this is not as good, obviously, as Alien or Aliens. Not even close.
No, there's a lot of silliness in this one.
But it's a silly, fun adventure, sci-fi horror movie. There is like things to enjoy. It's definitely got its charms.
You know, honestly, as people who watch a lot of franchises, in the fourth installment, you're not really expecting much. So the fact that we get something that's decent, it is, you know, it's special.
Unless you're Mad Max, in which case the fourth installment's the one that suddenly is the best.
Which, I mean, that does feel special, right?
I'm sure there's probably some other example. Oh, Mission Impossible, fourth one, best one in that franchise too.
Yeah, well, it's debatable, but they definitely get really good starting from the fourth one.
But yeah, you know, there's a lot of fun to be had. And then here's where like Ren betrays them and shoots Call, and she falls into the water. But then she ends up saving them when they can't get the door open, and it's this big reveal where she's alive, and they're like, "Wait a minute, I saw you take a shot to the chest," and then it's
you
like,
have a hole in your heart.
And it turns out she's an android, and this is where all that stuff comes up.
She's got the white goo.
She's got the weird milky blood.
Yeah.
So fun. Gross. She ends up like hooking up to the system and like is like doing like the mother voice, and she's like, "Could all aliens please hunt that evil prick scientist that shot me and tried to kill me? He's in this sector," as if the aliens can understand her. Maybe they can. Maybe they're that smart.
Do you think it's odd that their computer system is called Father?
I think
It's
that
like,
was.
go ahead.
I think that was just them. Like, obviously, it's like Mother, right? But I think maybe they were saying, oh, maybe their logic was it's the military, so the military have father computers.
Maybe it's just like my Google device where I can decide if it's a male or
Ah,
female
you
voice.
can pick, yeah.
You can just swap.
Maybe it's just
Depending
always.
on who you have less trauma with, your mother or your father.
Maybe it's just always one or the other, but just they thought we'll do father this time. They've got a choice.
Yeah.
They've got a choice. But yeah, so it's just after this though where the movie kind of, they're on their way to the ship, they're getting closer and whatnot, but along the way Ripley is like checking out the floor, the grating, because there's some goo, and she ends up like falling in, right? And she ends up waking up, and the Queen's there, and one of the things that I really don't like about this segment as well is that Brad Dourif is there, all like cocooned up, and he gives like weird commentary to everything that happens in this section.
He's still just devoted to his work, He's fascinated by the science of all of it.
Yeah, but now he sounds like a serial killer, and not like Chucky. I'm not saying he sounds like Chucky.
It is Brad Dourif, so like, yeah.
Yeah, but he sounds like he's talking about how, oh, it's a beautiful butterfly. I don't know. He sounds like just absolutely like psychotic.
Actually, I like this moment because I was so happy that we got more Brad Dourif to begin with, but also like, I don't know, like I think it makes his character really unique. In spite of everything that's happened to him, he's like, it's almost like a religious experience because he's been so focused on this alien creature for so long, and now he gets to see it and what its potential is and what Ripley means for that. Also,
well,
I was into it.
The big reveal here is that the alien has affected Ripley's DNA in this cloning process, but the opposite is also true. The alien queen has a bit of human from Ripley in her. So after she laid the eggs, she started just being pregnant with a child that was going to be born like a mammal. And that's ultimately what happens here is we get this new creature that's kind of alien, but kind of got like a weird like human-esque face on it. And it is, it's awful. I hate it.
I don't think it's awful. I think it's a really creepy looking design.
It's everything with like it thinking Ripley's its mom just feels a bit weird, and I
like
don't
that
know.
it's like Grendel or something. Yeah, it's all. It doesn't look like it should be alive. It's this strange like scientific experiment that shouldn't exist. It's like an English bulldog or something.
Like I see
that ain't natural.
I see thematically what they're going for. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it comes out of just nonsense, but I don't like so our big finale in this movie isn't with an alien, like a regular xenomorph or an alien queen or anything like that. It's this weird like hybrid thing that doesn't feel like it's close enough to a regular alien to feel like I'm getting a proper alien at the end.
No, because the hybrid thing kills the queen. But the queen and Ripley are like, they're like in love with each other or something. They have some sort of connection.
Well, Ripley got the queen pregnant, so I mean,
and she was pregnant with the queen.
Oh God, it's kind of Ouroboros style of romance. This is what happens if women ever go they don't need sperm anymore. They just become pregnant like by default after a number of years.
Well, I mean, it didn't seem like the xenomorphs ever needed to have any kind of male versus female. Like it's called a queen like an insect, right? But although insects do like inseminate the queen, but
I would say the face huggers are the males and that they impregnate the humans or whatever species.
Yeah, they're just like a parasite. They reproduce asexually, but they need a host to evolve.
So, I mean, Ripley obviously ends up running to the ship and getting out there eventually, but I'm just not a big fan of that stuff down there with the alien queen. Like it gets all kind of dreamlike and stuff, and I'm just not as into it. And then I don't really like the design of the hybrid, so I'm kind of on this last like little section. That said though, the cool death is also in this section.
Its death is pretty gruesome.
Well, no, not its death. I mean the cool death that we're referring to earlier, where Purvis uses his chest burster. So the evil scientist shows up and holds Call at gunpoint on the ship, on the Betty, and everything's like escalating. They're all arguing and shouting at each other and like trying to make demands. And Purvis is just sort of like his heart starts beating, and he ends up freaking out and he attacks the evil scientist in like a moment of rage.
Like a zombie too. He's like a bullet sponge. Like he's not being controlled by himself anymore, and he's like trying to get to him, even though he's getting shot up.
And he basically just holds Ren's head in front of his chest, so that when the chest burster comes out, it goes through his head.
Yeah,
it's pretty glorious.
And then everyone has to shoot the chest burster to kill. Yeah. To kill it. Also. Yeah, it's a really great death. Oh, and we never talked about Carla's ex-husband's death, but that scene always I remembered that from the theater too as being super gross.
Oh, of course, yeah. So this is basically before like the ragtag group meet up with Ripley. There's an evacuation sequence where as soon as the aliens get free, the plan is for all the military to just leave. They're like, no, F this. Like, we know this is dangerous. We're getting out. It is notable that one escape pod does escape first unscathed. So there is like a group of like a dozen like Space Marines or whatever they are who get away. So, because the second one, obviously, a xenomorph gets in the second one and starts killing them. And that's the one that Carla's ex-husband throws the grenade into and blows up when it gets away. Unfortunately for him, though, right after this, he gets xenomorphed in the back of the head, and he stays alive for just enough that he pulls out a bit of his own brain and just kind of looks at it. It's like,
it's so gross.
Yeah, actually, so they get away in the Betty, but obviously it does that thing where the cargo door wasn't quite closed, so obviously the hybrids got on board. And I want to say, like, all the shots of the Betty leaving the big ship looks good. Like, I love all the miniature work and all that. But there's a death that I wish that it stayed on it just a couple of frames longer, because it effectively crushes its So the guy from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, he almost makes it to the end. He's on the ship with them, but he goes back to check a noise, and the hybrid just like crushes his head and its hand. But it happens like so quickly in a flash that you just get a sense of it and no more. But when you cut back to him, his hand's just like covered in blood and like chunks of something. Yeah. And it's like, you just crushed that man's head in your hand like it was nothing. So
yeah, you're right. I wish we saw a little bit more, but it was nice, nice amount of it to where our imagination fills in the rest, and we're grossed out.
Yeah. Well, even the aliens ending's pretty gross, the hybrid, because
really gross.
Ripley just throws her blood at the small window in the cargo hold, and this little hole's made that starts sucking things out of space, and effectively the hybrid gets sucked into this relatively small hole. So it starts like all of its innards spill out at first in front when it starts to. When its like outer shell ruptures, all of its intestines come spilling out, and then they all start sucking back in because they go through the hole behind them, and then eventually it's just the head. And then eventually the skin sort of goes, and then it's just the skull, and then the skull just crumbles and goes. And it's honestly, it's a decent effect for 1997. Like it
I think so. It's pretty disgusting, and like I don't know. It's a good creative death for it, and I do feel a little bit of sympathy for the monster, because it's looking at Ripley like with the betrayal in its eyes, and like.
And even she's crying.
It's got
a little
enough
bit.
of a human-looking face to where you kind of feel bad, and and she's sad.
Yeah, she's feeling the heart of this, and Ripley, of course, has lost a daughter. She's lost two daughters, effectively. So this is something that hits a little bit.
She got over Newt pretty quickly.
Well, that's a problem in Alien 3's writing. Thank you very much.
Charles Dance took care of that.
What? Oh, he danced all right.
Ew.
One of the things we haven't mentioned as well, actually, is that this big ship is basically on autopilot back to Earth, because in times of a crisis, it goes back to home base, which is Earth. So it's like, shit, if this ship gets back to Earth, then Earth is screwed, because the aliens are going to overpopulate the Earth. So it's like, we have to blow it up. We can't. Okay, can we crash it? So they crash it into somewhere on Earth. I don't know did they mention exactly where they were sending it, like somewhere unpopulated? Because that was a pretty big looking explosion that seemed to happen when it crashed.
I don't recall. Hopefully it was Florida.
Because it looked like a nuke going off, is all I'm saying. Which leads me to an interesting thing. So the movie ends with them all getting to Earth, and there's a few jokes where Ron Perlman's like, Earth's a shithole and that, and they're like, what do we do here? And Ripley's like, oh, I'm kind of a stranger here myself. So that's where the movie ends. It kind of ends in this hopeful moment of like Ripley's in some form is finally back to Earth, which is where we've never seen her be in the entire franchise. And it's okay. Do you know about
She's gonna get a cat, probably.
Probably. Do you know about the alternate ending to this?
I don't.
So
is it darker?
On the it's on the iTunes version as well, actually, but on the Blu-ray, the DVD, or whatever, you've got the option of the special edition, which is mostly the same. There's maybe a couple of small things that are added in, but the big difference is really just the ending, where you actually see them on Earth. You see them like after they've landed, and the ending originally, like it's like the post-apocalypse, like it's like a wasteland, and the Eiffel Tower's in the background, like looking shit. Although I did wonder here though if the implication is not that Earth is a wasteland, it's just that Paris is, because that's where they crashed the big ship and they've just destroyed everything. Obviously, they decided to make it more hopeful and take that out and say, oh no, and because I will say this: if Earth is post-apocalypse, it's kind of weird that they feel that they have to save it. Like, if Earth is just a wasteland, then why do they have to stop the ship from getting to Earth?
And there may still be people living there.
Yeah,
or they just don't want anything surviving
Yeah.
that could be another egg or whatever, getting to Earth where it could repopulate.
So I think the dialogue in the movie makes me think that Earth might not be great, but at least it is still populated with humans. Even though obviously we're in a future where a lot of people grow up in space or other planets because we've just got that type of space travel now. But yeah, so I just thought it's interesting. But
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, honestly, out of all the alternate cuts, Alien Resurrection is the one that's just kind of like, oh, the other three have got very different cuts on the like as their extras. This should have one too, so let's put in this alternate ending. But that's basically all it is. So you've not missed much by not seeing that version of it, I'll say.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, because unlike the others, like everyone just watches the theatrical cut. There's no reason to.
I watched this off the Stars app, which I have for some reason. So and it was the theatrical cut.
Yeah,
There wasn't any option.
I think everywhere will be the theatrical cut unless you have the option. It'll always be.
Unless you have the quadrilogy set.
Because like Aliens, I expect it to be the longer cut in most places. It's weird when it isn't.
Yeah, because the longer cut also has so many good things added to it that so part of the themes are kind of missing without it.
And Alien 3 is the annoying one where you definitely want to watch the alternate cut.
So bad.
But it's it's harder to find versus the theatrical cut.
I bet it has the most interesting behind the scenes documentary though.
Oh yeah, in fact, there's a story behind that one where originally Fox made them edit it down because they didn't like all the negativity towards them in it. But then when they did the Blu-ray much later, they decided to let them put it all back in. I guess it was different management at that point.
Yeah, maybe they're a fan.
So it's uncut now on iTunes or on the Blu-ray. You can watch it's called Wreckage and Rage: The Making of Alien 3. Which is actually slightly altered. The original title was going to be Wreckage and Rape, but they thought that was maybe a bit too much.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's very heavy. It's still just a movie. Let's not go extreme with it. But Rage works. So yeah, I think Alien Resurrection is a pretty solid, entertaining movie. Obviously, it's nothing compared to the first two. I do dislike a lot of the last 20 minutes, but it doesn't really hurt like the B-movie good time that I'm having otherwise.
I agree.
Yeah, okay. Well, in that case, you can rate it that.
Yeah, like I said before, getting the fourth installment in a sci-fi or a horror movie franchise tends to be, not any good quality, but I think this is one of those.
Halloween 4, come on. That's not.
Halloween 4 is very good, yeah, of course, but Hellraiser 4. That's where the turn really happens. I didn't love 3, but
yeah, 4's yes, Hellraiser 4's pretty.
So I don't know. I think for a movie where I think it's just consistently pretty good, like all four of these. And, obviously the first two are great. I think the first movie is a masterpiece, and the second movie is, like, on any given day, you can ask me and I might like it more than the first one. But, like, and the third one has a unique vision, and, like, yeah, sure, some of it's disappointing, but, like, it's still... you still get a new sci-fi movie with characters that you like, and a monster that is a unique setting and a unique feel. And I think this one kind of continues that uniqueness to it, and I am thoroughly entertained. And this one has some of the best death scenes, I think, or at least I find it to be very creative, and I've always liked it. So I'm happy to give it a 7, because I feel like I probably would have given it that all the way through since it came out.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier, is that these 4 films all have directors. They all have proper directors who are established, who are well respected, who have visions. And 3 and 4 are a lot more flawed than 1 and 2, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Much more so. But there's still, like, you watch this and you compare, and yeah, I know it's still Ridley Scott who did the other 2. Don't get me wrong, I know that. But clearly, Ridley Scott is someone who needs a good script. If you give Ridley Scott a good script, he'll go and turn it into a good movie. But if you don't have a good script, then he will not recognize what needs to be changed, and he'll just make it, and it'll be as shit as the script was. And more on that in about a year's time.
If only Tony Scott could have made it.
I mean, I don't know if Tony Scott is...
I mean, he wouldn't have done it anyway. It's his brother's property.
He wouldn't have been the answer, I don't think. I am fascinated to see what Fede Alvarez does with the one that he's working on. Yeah.
That's still happening?
I think so. And I believe we also have the FX show that's coming from the guy that did the Fargo TV show. So we got a movie and a TV show in the works.
So we got new names and, names that we both really like.
Yep. So I'm hoping we'll finally have some good Alien. Prey gave me hope. Predator got a good movie. So can Alien. It can happen.
Yes. Come on, Fede. You haven't let us down yet.
So, anyway, my rating of this, I don't know if I'd quite go as high as a 7. I think, that's me just saying it's good. I think it's flawed enough at the end for me that I think I have to maybe lean more towards the 6. Maybe a 6.5. I'll say 6.5. I think I'm happy with that. But I think it's mostly fun. I think it looks good. I like the characters well enough. It feels like a director's vision in a way that, a lot of modern movies don't. Like, all of a sudden I look at Alien Resurrection and go, you know what? This has got a lot of things that a lot of modern films are lacking. And it's seen as the weak one of this, like, batch of 4. And that's kind of interesting to compare. So, I suppose in just one way or another, it makes you realize what you appreciate in a movie when you look at what movies now don't have often. Not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them don't. When you see, I don't know, Super Mario Brothers, for example, it just came out, and it's
I saw that today.
Yeah, and it's perfectly fine and safe, but it's very much a product. It's very much a focus group tested. We had a list of things we wanted to get in there to reference and whatnot, and the plot's just there to wrap around it to make it work. But that's I feel like maybe not in a plot sense, but Jean-Pierre Jeunet was definitely, like, he cared about how this looked. He was,
oh yeah, totally,
in the trenches with the model makers. The cinematographer.
Is this his first American film?
I think it might be. Yeah. I'll click on his name and just do a little double check of that.
I'm pretty sure I've only seen Amelie from him.
I've seen a few of his films. Delicatessen is one we'll do. In fact, City of Lost Children. Yeah. Delicatessen definitely is. City of Lost Children, I think, also is. So we've definitely got a couple of his movies in our future. Yeah.
Ooh,
he did City of Lost Children right before Alien Resurrection. That was 95. Which, if I click on... Yeah, sci-fi is listed in the genres, so... It's good enough for me. But yeah, he did a movie called Micmacs in 2009, which I never saw, but I remember getting the trailer for it. I never got around to it, though. But, Yeah, I've not seen a lot of his modern stuff. Like he's got like a lot of French stuff. You know, basically he seemed to decide that he preferred working in France, so he didn't really do any more American movies by the looks of it. But
Yeah.
I've not seen anything that he's done since the 90s. But yeah, obviously they did it. Well, Emily was 2001. Sorry, but yeah. So, but no, a couple of those are sci-fi, so we'll get to them.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps up our thoughts on Alien Resurrection. This has been your Alien Day special episode for 2023.
Happy Alien Day, everybody.
Yes, yes. Happy Alien Day to all. And, you know, have a... You know, it's not too long after Easter. If there's any Easter eggs going for cheap, have an Easter egg in honor of Alien.
Yeah, you can still get the in the clearance sections of grocery store. You can get the Reese's peanut butter cup ones.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Those are probably the best ones. I don't eat them anymore, but I used to enjoy them.
So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the show. Let us know what you think of Alien Resurrection in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that usual stuff. Of course, you can support all the content over in patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and you get bonus content, of course, at the $3 tier and up. You get a bonus episode every month, which, you know, is just another movie that we do. We'll be doing Species 3 next. That's what we've got planned for the next one. But we do a lot of the sequels that aren't really worth doing on the regular episodes. But, you know, we'll get to those direct-to-video sequels in the bonus episodes, things like that. And then there's the odd, like, better movie like Time Cop or something thrown in there. And then at
just to lure you in.
And at the $5 tier and up, we have another monthly show called The Ace Meltdown, where we talk about all the different movies we've been watching throughout the month, and we do a little sci-fi quiz with each other. So, you know, it's more of just a movie catch-up show on a monthly basis. But there's also bonuses for Streams After Midnight. There's bonuses for Collector's Cut. So you get a nice little bouquet of content throughout. And I think we're just about to hit 50 bonus episodes. So,
Whoa.
nice back catalogue of those building up. So, go check out.
Nice.
Yeah. But anyway,
I feel like we have more than 50, but I guess that's true.
It's about 50. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Only once a month, right?
Yeah, so about a quarter of the total of the regular show.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Whoa.
So, I know, wild. But anyway, that's been the show. That's been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Next time,
I did.
we'll be back with Transformers Dark of the Moon.
No.
The sharp turn in Tara's face there was a thing of beauty, quite frankly. But that is us. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer. Oh, sorry. Father, add salsa.